Hey guys, and welcome to this tutorial. Today, we will be talking about the account model. In today's financial landscape, it is important to have accurate and intuitive account structures that can help us produce financial statements more accurately. Improper account titles or account codes can ultimately impact the financial management process of any entity. So, understanding all the nuances of all the different accounts is crucial for the proper financial management of any company. In the world of bookkeeping and accounting, there are certain rules and/or best practices that we can incorporate into our project to make sure we simplify and streamline the data entry process of our application. In this video, we will delve into the fundamentals of the Django Ledger account model, and I will be providing you practical examples so you can incorporate those into your project. If you want a free guide on how to get started with Django Ledger, go to miguelsanda.com/get started today. And don't forget to join our Discord channel, link in the description below, where you're going to have access to me and other community members to assist you with all your questions. As always, just take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It will help us continue making videos like this and to keep growing the community. Hi, I'm Miguel Sanda. I'm the creator and lead developer of the Django Ledger framework. And on this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about the account model. If that is something that you're interested in, let's hit it. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get started. First things first, let's go ahead and start our Jupyter Lab IDE server. Let's do pip env shell. Now Jupyter Lab. Awesome. So if this is not familiar to you, go ahead and check the prior videos where I'm going to be explaining how to set up this development environment for your Django Ledger project. Okay, once again, we go to the notebooks folder, and right now you should be able to see the account model notebook in there. Double click it. Let's open that up. Let's increase the font size a little bit. All right, hopefully that's good enough. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be doing here is we're going to do our basic imports. And I'm hitting Shift Enter right now to kind of like execute that code. And let's look a little bit into the account model and what's the definition of an account. And basically an account is a bucket of money that has a financial role within our accounting system. The account balance is going to be the aggregate of all the credits and debits done to such account for a specific period of time, okay? When we pull a financial statement, what's happening behind the scenes is that the database is aggregating all the debits and credits for a specific account and is going to show the balance on such financial statement. So depending on the account, a credit will increase its balance and a debit will decrease its balance. Examples of an account in a financial statement can include things like bank account, can include things like credit cards, accounts payable, accounts receivable, things like real estate or property, land, etc. Accounts are what drive the financial statements of any company. And like we said, a proper account structure will help us produce more accurate financial statements and is going to help us reduce the data entry errors that could potentially arise when dealing with financially driven applications. All right, so before we get started with the account model, the first thing we need to do is create a chart of accounts model. And as I mentioned in the prior video, the chart of accounts model is the container that holds our list of accounts. If you want to learn more about the chart of accounts model, go ahead and check the prior video for that detail. All right, so we create a chart of accounts model, and we can see that we have a new chart of accounts model. Notice that we are assigning the chart of accounts model as the default for this entity. And we have some boilerplate code here that is going to help us understand the basic structure of this chart of accounts. As mentioned in the prior video, every new chart of accounts will be created with 7 individual root nodes or root accounts. You're going to have the root node, which is the genesis of the chart of accounts. And then you're going to have 6 individual account root nodes, which are going to hold all the accounts that branch out from that specific category. Like for instance, we have the asset accounts root node, we have the liabilities account root nodes, and so forth. So every time we create a asset account, the asset account will branch out of the asset root node from our chart of accounts. All right, so now let's go ahead and create our first account. And before we do that, there are certain things we need to be aware of that are basic accounting principles when we create new accounts. So the first thing that we need to be aware of is the balance type. And the balance type is what defines how the account balance is going to be affected by debits and credits performed to it. So before we create our account, we need to define whether we want to create a debit account or a credit account. We need to know the new account code because the account code is what's going to show in our financial statement. So we need to select the appropriate account code for our new account. And finally, we need to define the account role. And the account role is what's going to define the family of our accounts. Like, for instance, anything that is cash needs to be grouped into a cash role. Anything that is an expense needs to be grouped to an expense role. And there are different kinds of expenses. Anything that is an operational income will be grouped into an operational income kind of role. So if you want to check out all the valid roles, you could just go to the roles module and check all the valid codes right here. There's about 55 different roles that you can choose from. And that includes things like cost of goods sold, regular expenses, interest expenses, or if you want to go to the asset section, you could see that you have cash accounts or things like accounts receivable and things like that. So make sure to go ahead and check that out and become familiar with them because you're going to need it for any new account that you're going to be creating. Here's a couple of examples that I've provided. So a cash account is the asset cash account, and CA stands for current assets, and so forth. So when we create new accounts, the first thing that we could be tempted to do is by doing a direct instantiation of the model by calling the account model and passing in the parameters. So as you can see, we're specifying the code, the name, we need to specify the role, the balance type as a debit. We can pass in the chart of accounts model that is going to house this new account. And active equals false means that this account will be inactivated for now at the moment of creation. So this is the normal way. However, you could see that we get an error here, and this is because account models should not be instantiated like this. And this is because, remember, behind the scenes, there's a hierarchy of accounts, and this method will not guarantee that the account is inserted into that tree appropriately. So this will not work. So what will work is that we need to use the entity model API by using the create account method. And this is part of the entity model. So by now you should be able to create an entity model and have an entity model already instantiated in memory. And what we do is we pass the create account, or we use the create account function, and we're passing the same parameters right here. So we could see that worked, and voila. So we have created our new account. So part of the description here says that this particular account is part of the assets in the balance sheet. Here's the account code. And right here, what we have is the account role and the balance type. Now let's repeat the same operation, and let's just say that the new account is going to be an expense account. Therefore, we select the expense operational role. And we're going to say, okay, this is going to be of code 1102, is going to be for office expenses. And let's go ahead and do that. So now we get another error. And if you see right here, it says that the account model failed to validate. So basically because of the code. And this is where some best practices has been kind of implemented into Django Ledger to make sure that we follow them and that we make sure that our accounts are created properly. And what this is saying is that expense accounts must start with the number 6. And that's kind of like common practice within the accounting domain. We could see that the convention is that assets should start with the number 1, liabilities with the number 2, capital accounts number 3, income number 4, cost of goods sold number 5, and expense accounts number 6. So if we go ahead and execute the same code, but we replace the 1 with the 6, now we could see that we have created our new expense account. All right, now the other thing that we need to keep in mind is that the account codes must be unique for the chart of accounts that is actually housing them or holding them. So we could see here that we are attempting to create a new expense account with exactly the same code. We could even say office expenses number 2, and it's not gonna matter because what this is doing is validating that the account code is unique for that particular chart of accounts model. And this is enforced by Django itself at the database layer. All right, so how do we get the account models that we're creating so far? So we could use the chart of accounts model if we have instantiated one. So we could use the get non-root COA accounts. And what this is going to do is going to pull a query set of accounts, which we could just see right here in this pandas data frame. And we could see that there's only 2 accounts, which is the ones we just created, right? The second option is to use the entity instance model. And usually Django Ledger will always give you easy access to the entity model based on the transaction or the view or the operation that you are doing. Usually the entity model is readily available for you to operate on. And if you have the entity model handy, you could just use the get COA account right there. But wow, didn't we just create just 2 accounts just recently? Well, the reason why we're not getting any is because we need to be explicit on if we want to include the active or the inactive accounts in this particular operation. So if we pass active account or active equals false, we could see that now we can pull those accounts are also included in the query set. Also, we could see that if you're calling this method from the entity model, you could optionally pass in a COA model to use from that entity. And if you pass the wrong COA model, which means that if you pass in a COA model that does not belong to this entity as a safety measure, Django Ledger is going to make sure that you're passing a COA model that's actually valid for that entity. There you go. So we get the same result. Or if you just want to pull the default chart of accounts list, you could just use this method and it will be the same result. Now, what if you want to get all the accounts, no matter what the chart of accounts model is? Well, in that particular case, you can use the get all accounts model. And there you go. That will include also the root accounts in this particular query. Notice that in the prior queries, these were not included because technically you cannot transact on those particular accounts. So those are logged. Actually, you could see here that these are logged by default, meaning that there's no way any transaction can hit any of these accounts. And this is enforced by the Django Ledger backend. Now, the next thing that we have to be aware of is about the account status. So again, accounts can be active or inactive, and we can programmatically check if these accounts are active or inactive by using the isActive method on the account model. Also, we have things like can activate, just to make sure that if we have a program, we can check beforehand to see if that account can be inactivated. The reason being is because when we use the activate method, which is an operation that is going to activate this specific account, we could pass in a couple options here. We could commit the transaction right away and raise an exception if the account cannot be inactivated. Now, with this action, we activate these 2 accounts. And now when we pull the accounts again, we can see that now they're both active. Now, there's a variety of account model methods that you could check out. All of these will give you information about the account that you could check programmatically on your application. So you could see here that all of these methods will give you information about the account, including on what part of the balance sheet this account is going to show. This one right here is the expense account, and you could see that this account has its expense equals true, while this account has its asset equals true. Obviously, all of these categories right here, only one of them can be true because they're obviously mutually exclusive. Now, the other avenue that we have as users is to use the management UI. In this management UI, with this link right here, you could just go back here, and this is going to be a more visual representation of the accounts in that chart of accounts model. And right here, we could just visually create, for instance, create a new account. And let's just say that we want to create an income account. And I can show you that the validation also applies here. Income accounts are supposed to start with a 4. So let's just say that we select the 5, something like that. We just say sales, and we can select for instance, a role of operational income. The account type, let's just say it's a credit. Usually income accounts are credit accounts. And we submit. Oh, now we get this error right here that operational income accounts should start with a 4. So let's go ahead and change that. Awesome. Now we could see that we have a new operational income account, and we could see that it's not active. So another option we have is to go ahead and update this and just activate it real quick here. Great. You could see it's being activated. All right. Another trick that I'm going to show you is how to use the Django Ledger's default built-in chart of accounts to populate a new chart of accounts. And this way, you don't have to create any accounts from scratch. So let's just say that we create a new chart of accounts for this entity model. And we can create a chart of accounts. It's COA name. All right, now we could see that there are no accounts created here. Now we could just use the entity model, and we could pass in we could set a default. And now we could just populate the default chart of accounts. And this has magically created all the accounts we need to get started with any project. And we can even go back here to our management UI, and we could just go back to our dashboard. Okay. And we can go back here and say, go to our chart of accounts. And we can see that this tutorial CUA already has 88 accounts created for us. And we can go in here, and there you go. All the accounts you need to get started with any project with Django Ledger. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to drop your comments in the box below. If you haven't, go ahead to miguelsanda.com/get started to get your free guide on Django Ledger. Also, don't forget to join the Discord, link in the description below as well. Like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.